Welcome to Sinkowitz, hosted by the fearless Linda Sinkowitz. She's syncing you up with the latest in election integrity, from breaking headlines to critical updates you won't hear anywhere else. With Linda, it's facts first as she leads the fight for one vote for one legal voter. Stay informed, stay empowered. Let's jump in.
Hi, welcome to Sinkowitz. I'm Linda Sinkowitz. I am the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. Now, this week, my guest is Andy Thompson from Nevada. He will be coming on very shortly. And the states of the week, we're going to go to Idaho, Iowa, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Texas. We're going to talk about our election and voting terms. Then we'll go to our trivia question, which when we come back, we'll actually give you the answer. And then we're going to go to national news, vote notes, and then, of course, at the end, my final thoughts, which, as all of you know, I never have any opinions on anything. All right, well, let's get right to it. And here's our guest of the week, Andy Thompson. Hi, Andy.
How are you doing, Linda? Great to see you again.
You too. It's been over a year since we actually saw each other in person.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so it
wow.
is. Yeah, I know. Well, you have been extremely busy in Nevada,
I
and we've
have.
talked about some of your stuff that you've been doing, but now that we have you here, why don't you let us know exactly what you have been doing in Nevada?
All right. So, 2024, after the general election, we decided to contest that election because of the data that we were receiving from the Secretary of State, showing us stuff that just shouldn't actually exist in a real election. So the nail in the coffin was the cast vote record. And so when it was finally published, we combed through it. We had a gentleman, especially Ed Solomon, who combed through that and searched and found exactly the smoking gun that we needed, the evidence of a manipulated cast vote record. And so he found that the parallelism, the lockstep motion, the synchronization of Democrat voters and Republican voters on ballot question 3 just absolutely blew our minds that this was actually there. And so, with some other missing ballots and undervoted ballots by the tens of thousands, able to alter almost all of the outcomes of the races here in Nevada, we were like, this smells too bad. We got to contest. So, we went and we contested. So I did this here pro se. We couldn't find a single lawyer in the state who was willing to take it up. One lawyer literally wrote me back and said, I will not hazard my law license to touch these things. So pro se we are. And so after 7 months in the state district court, we got dismissed, and it was the most beautiful dismissal possible. Why? Because of the absurdity of the ruling. So literally, the judge adopted the Secretary of State's misreading of the law. So the law that governs in Nevada who can contest an election is in two parts. One part talks about the candidates and candidates contesting an election. The other part is for the voters. And so the Secretary of State kept arguing, plaintiff hasn't named a candidate. He's got to name a candidate. And so the judge, in his dismissal on June 18th, finds the exact same thing. But here's the catch. It's half the law. The other half of the law says or, so it's a disjunctive or, which means it's separating the two parts. Or in certain cases, a voter of the proper jurisdiction who is for the purpose of determining the validity of an election. So I meet all three prongs of that. And how convenient it was that the Secretary of State, who misread the law, the judge misread the same law in the same exact way to find against me and dismiss. So, what that ultimately creates for Nevada is this condition, and this is part of my opening brief I submitted on October 22nd with the Nevada Supreme Court. That's the direct appeal court for election issues here in Nevada.
Mhm.
So, what they have proposed then is a situation in which ballot questions, which can amend the state constitution, can never be challenged. So even if you find fraud in ballot question measures, you cannot
Mhm.
challenge them. You cannot contest them. So it's as beautiful a setup and a tee up as can be. The ruling is an absolute absurdity. The consequence of the ruling itself is based upon a misreading of the law. And then the judge mischaracterized many things in his dismissal order to show an abuse of discretion, I'll call that. And so all of those things are listed out there. I am not only affirming the law, but I'm also affirming when there's misconduct from a judge. I'm totally unafraid of this. And he doesn't like that. He had some nice things to say about me in the dismissal, which I wear as a badge of honor. But now his
Mhm.
misrepresentations and mischaracterizations are now before the Nevada Supreme Court. So that is kind of round one of where we've been at in our contest of the 2024 election. Now, with that process ongoing, that produces a hold on the Secretary of State and all of our clerks on the information, the election data.
Right. No
So
purging. No
n-
purging of any information has to be
that's right.
retained.
No purging and no alteration or modification. You can't even alter
Mhm.
it or modify it. So what happened is on July 15th, I get a letter from the Attorney General on behalf of the Secretary of State saying they are going to go through with the updates. They're going to do it. And so they said the Secretary is going to authorize it on July 18th, and they're going to commence with updating from July 21st to September 30th. All right, so guess what happens? Actually, it was July 10th that I got the email, but on July 15th, I sued in federal court. They were
Nice.
absolutely simply gunning to destroy the record. They were openly
Mhm.
wanting to destroy the evidence. So I sued in federal court. And in the process, excuse me, the Secretary of State has only made one filing in opposition to my motion for a temporary restraining order against them. So in that document, they made an admission that updating will overwrite data from the 2024 election, but
Mhm.
their theory is based upon this idea that Nevada statute doesn't allow me to ever to contest. So if I can't contest the election, I can't have access to the data. And so they say, I cannot prove ever irreparable harm from the data loss because I could never have access to it. So their legal theory narrows the path to this ridiculous situation in which there's only harm if Andy has access. And so because he doesn't have access, there is no such thing as harm. So his lawsuit is unfounded. He doesn't have standing. He can't make a claim. On and on and on they go. But within their document, they admit to the overriding. They admit to modification. They admit to altering. They admit that it's going to happen, but justify it because they think it's not going to harm me. So I waited for the judges to kind of pick this up. It's like, wow, we've got an admission on the record. They're bold. And so the magistrate judge a couple of weeks ago, after I had waited long enough, I motioned for sanctions and I motioned for the production of documents because the court was not moving. I was going to take control of the court here. I knew beyond any shadow of a doubt that they had broken the law. There was no reason for them to do the updates, but for one, and that was to destroy the evidence. So I motioned for sanctions. So the magistrate judge picks this up, denies both motions. And after that, and the way that they did it, it just said, you know what? Um, this is absolutely outrageous, and we got to do something about it. So I wrote up a Rule 72A objection, which means that I am objecting to this judge denying my motions because their orders were based upon error and them being contrary to law. So they're not reading the law right or applying it correctly. So in that, um, the the objection lays out 18 different points in which I can show beyond any shadow of a doubt, using the judge's own words and using the Secretary of State's own words, to prove error and that they're not following the law. So I fired that back. And so now they've got that in hand. And that means that the district judge now has to take it up and rule on their magistrate judge's orders. So I'm trying to take control of the court here. They
Mm.
want to be in control. They want to drown me in process. But I'm firing back. They give me an order and I fire back within a couple of days. So I'm trying to keep them on their toes. And then lastly, with this, I then filed a criminal referral to the FBI and the Department of Justice, also our
Good
U.S.
for you.
Attorney. So that was put into the mail. You bet. That was put into the mail yesterday. I emailed them all the
Nice.
documents on Saturday. They are not going to get away with it. I am not going to let them think that they're going to get away with it. They have done this openly. And the beauty of this is that I don't have to interpret anything. It's their own words that show that they have intent, they have awareness, and they committed the
Mhm.
act of destruction. So, excuse me 1 second here. In my objection, I also supplemented the record with some technical manuals. So the Dominion 5.20 update that
Yeah.
they claim they just had to do it. They had no choice. Within it, it shows 6 different processes that are destructive to the data to the point where it sanitizes the system and the data is not recoverable. So
Oh
I
my
list
God.
out those 6 different processes that Nevada just confessed to doing. And here's the thing, though. The state has made no effort whatsoever to demonstrate that they have done anything to preserve that data. Unless you preserve that data ahead of time, the process of the update wipes the system. And so I phrased it this way, that Nevada just wiped its election data with such modesty, the modesty of a public bathroom with no doors on the stalls, you know?
Oh,
They've done this openly. They just haven't cared. And so, yeah,
what's really something is that all these things that you're talking about that you're doing in the filings, as you said in the beginning, you're doing this pro se. You don't
mhm,
have an attorney.
yeah,
You It's incredible what you have been able to do in getting this stuff out there. And I agree with you. Attorneys do not want to get involved in any election stuff at
yeah,
all. They don't.
yeah. Well,
Y yeah.
yeah, I want to kind of give a plug to Greg Stenstrom. You know, he's been a
Right.
good counselor to guide and direct, and he's developed a system of doctrines and principles that help guide your thinking, guide
Mhm.
your awareness about what's happening. And so I've been able to apply that guidance to everything that I'm doing. It's just helped clarify my vision of what this court process is all about, and so that's been a tremendous help in that. It
Yeah,
takes
great.
work. When I get going, it's like 4 days in a row of documents, morning to night.
Wow.
Because I'm pro se, I don't know all of this, so I have to learn it. And then I'm the kind of person that I've got to understand it if I'm going to utilize it. So, but
Mhm.
I'm enjoying it. I mean, that part is fun. I enjoy the learning. I enjoy the growing in the understanding. But
And also, again,
yeah,
to have Greg Stenstrom, if people don't know, Greg Stenstrom is out of Pennsylvania.
yeah,
He's done a lot of his stuff pro se. Been in the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania with a number of things, and he's relentless. He's a
yeah,
wealth of information and a friend of both of ours.
yeah,
So, you're
absolutely.
right. Let's plug Greg. He's going to be on in a couple of weeks. We're going to have Greg back on the show. But Andy, we want to get some final thoughts from you that
Yeah.
you'd like the listeners to know.
Well, I'd like people to know that it's time to fight. Um,
Mhm.
our ruling class, Republican or Democrat, they're not showing and proving that they're ready for this fight. I think in part they don't understand it. I think in part they are complicit. I think some
Mhm.
just don't care. But I'm fighting for the survival of our nation, and that's not hyperbole. I look back at the last 150 years of human civilization and watch what happens when government gains the kind of power and retains it like they already have. See, we've lost our election, we've lost our republic, and so we are under a threat. We've
We
got
will get it
some,
back.
That's right. And that's what we're fighting for, to get that republic back. And so, by God's grace and with his favor, we'll get it back.
Absolutely. And God bless you. And thank you so much, Andy, for coming on.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Linda. Good to see you again.
You too. Going to go to a quick break and we'll be right back.
At Fight Voter Fraud, we work to ensure every legal vote is counted, and no unlawful vote ever diminishes the voice of we the people. We're fighting for you, in courtrooms and communities nationwide, to protect transparency, accountability, and fairness in every election. Our mission is simple: one vote for one legal voter. This is our country, this is our vote, let's protect it together.
Welcome back to Sinkowitz. My name is Linda Sinkowitz. I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. And again, I want to thank Andy Thompson so much for coming on. He is a dear friend. He is working like crazy in the state of Nevada in order to get free and fair elections. And they are going the opposite way, which we are seeing in just about every state. All right, so our first state that we are going to talk about is Idaho. Idaho. This is from the Idaho Mountain Express from November 12th, 2025. Bellevue mayor fined for election law violations. And I guess the Blaine County prosecutor imposed a total of $350 penalty. In the beginning, it wasn't going to be that much, and I'll tell you why. So, the Bellevue mayor, Christina Giordano, was fined by the Blaine County prosecutor after using a city newsletter to call for votes. Well, we all know that's wrong. You can't do that. So, she was fined for 2 separate incidents in election law violations. Giordano violated the Idaho Public Integrity Election Act, which prohibits the use of public resources to advocate for or against a candidate. Her opponent, which is the city councilwoman Suzanne Reed, filed because of Giordano's use of the city's official newsletter on October 24th, calling for votes. All right, so then a civil fine of $250 was levied for the inadvertent act, according to the prosecutor, Fredback. The following day, Giordano issued an apology, except she did it in the city newsletter, creating the second fine of $100. In her apology, Fredback said she advocated for herself as a candidate to, quote, learn from this and work to continue serving Bellevue with honesty, integrity, and transparency, unquote. So Giordano was reelected as the mayor, minus $350 in fines. I just thought that was funny. Okay, I made a mistake. I apologize. Oops, I made another mistake. Oops. At least there wasn't another apology on the apology that she did. But wow. All right, so now we're going to go on to Iowa. Madison County supervisors address election equipment issues, financial deadlines during Veterans Day meeting to vote, prosecutors say. And this is from WHO 13 NBC News, and that's from November 12th, 2025. The 2.5-hour meeting, oh my God, can you imagine being in a meeting for 2.5 hours? I used to be on the board of ed, and sometimes those meetings would go 3 and 4 hours. I mean, and anyway. Wow, got off track on that one. The 2.5-hour meeting of the Madison County supervisors focused on the issues from the election. Voting machines reportedly overheated at 2 different precincts, and that was in Earlham and Van Meter, after aging rollers melted during the ballot processing. I would think that's a huge problem. So the county elections deputy, Mikala Simpson, had to resort to quick repairs to remove the, quote, gunk that had accumulated inside the machine while voters used the emergency bin, said County Auditor Michelle Brandt. Branch said the similar problem happened before in 2024 with 3 other machines. Nobody thought to check into this after 3 machines a year ago had an issue? The equipment is in need of replacing for quite some time. I think the word or phrase, no kidding. The former auditor pushed for new equipment, but it was denied because of the $100,000 cost over 5 years. So for $20,000 a year, you want all the ballots and everything to go and have the machines melt everything and not work. The ballots at the affected polling locations for 4 races couldn't be certified on that Tuesday night after the election, and they were going to be manually counted. The law says they have to have working equipment. That's pretty much a no-brainer. My goodness. I think the people that denied purchasing them should be held accountable. Oh, wait a minute. They're going to wait till 2026 and see how many more machines do a meltdown. All right, so now we're going to go on to North Carolina. This is from WBTV from November 10th. North Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles incorrectly registered non-citizens to vote, federal prosecutors say. Well, there's a surprise. 6 non-citizens were registered to vote by the DMV, according to U.S. Attorney Russ Ferguson. None of the non-citizens were aware of the registration by the DMV, and they're not being charged. So it wasn't the non-citizens' fault. Now, how this works is that people who are visiting the United States legally can actually get a driver's license. But unfortunately, what happens, and we know this happens in Connecticut, is that DMV will register you to vote even when you say, no, I'm not a U.S. citizen. So this happened in North Carolina. So again, none of the non-citizens voted because they didn't even know that they had been registered to vote by the DMV. The DMV employee caused the errors. The 6 thought signing in the electronic box was just part of getting a driver's license. Each had a different issue. An employee checked off that they were a U.S. citizen. Another had a system error. And there were claims of examiner oversight. It appears the issues could have been prevented by a DMV examiner who would actually be paying attention, according to the U.S. Attorney. Other issues are also being addressed. These things, I mean, they're just so simple. Oh my goodness. Buy your voting machines when they're already burning up on you. You know, make sure at DMV they actually do their job. I mean, you're only focused on the one person when you're getting their driver's license. How difficult is that to make sure that they're checking the right boxes? Okay, we're going on to Pennsylvania. Of course, we have Pennsylvania in the spotlight again. Pennsylvania will probably be in the spotlight just about every single week. They have so many issues. So this source is from Spotlight, PA, from November 12th. Chester County plans independent investigation of poll book issue that forced 12,000 to vote provisionally. What caused the poll book error on election day in Chester County? That's the big question here. Officials still cannot explain why an independent and third-party voters were left off the poll books. Remember, we told you they only had the Democrats and the Republicans, and that was it. They didn't have the independents, unaffiliated, actually in their poll books. So there was 12,100 votes were cast with provisional ballots. Those are ballots that would have to be reaffirmed that they are actually allowed to vote. Now, the county is hiring an independent investigator by November 17th and will provide an update at the board meeting on November 21st, Board of Elections meeting. The investigation should be completed by mid-December and results by January. For some reason, I don't think we're going to hold our breath on that. But anyway, Chester County CEO David Byerman said they need to learn the key causes and, quote, what processes and controls were in place, unquote, to check the accuracy of the poll books and, quote, how and why those processes failed, unquote. I think that's reasonable. Like, why? All right, so Frederick Redick, a judge of elections from East Whiteland Township, said he realized there was a problem early on election day. First, the county instructed him to handwrite voters' names in the poll book and allow them to cast a regular ballot. But then the county workers were directed to give out provisional ballots. Well, there's a problem right there. You've got some people voting with the regular ballots, and now you're telling people that they have to vote provisionally. We'll see. Again, Pennsylvania has a lot of issues. And I know in a couple of weeks when we have Greg Stenstrom on, he is going to be able to tell us a lot more of the issues in Pennsylvania. So now we're going to go on to Texas. This is from News from the States from November 10th, 2025. Texas Latino Civic Group sues to block Attorney General Ken Paxton from shutting it down. So Jolt Initiative is a nonprofit that aims to increase civic participation among Latinos, is suing Texas Attorney General Paxton to block his efforts to shut them down. Paxton had announced he was seeking to revoke the nonprofit's charter, alleging that the group has orchestrated, quote, a systematic, unlawful voter registration scheme, unquote. There's a lot of legal back and forth that's going on in the article and also in Texas, and it's been going on the last couple of years. I encourage everyone to go and actually read the entire article. I mean, there's new lawsuits, but the article itself is absolutely slanted in a particular direction. Let's wait and see what the courts come out with all of their rulings. All right, so now we're going to go on to our election and voting terms, our election vocab. I did use the U.S. Elections Assistance Commission. I checked it on November 13th of 2025, but a wonderful listener to our program let me know that they have not updated that glossary of terms since 2021. But I don't think this particular one has changed. This is lever voting machines, a machine that directly records a voter's choice via mechanical lever actuated controls into a counting mechanism that tallies the votes without using a physical ballot. So that is our lever voting machine. Now we're going to go to our trivia question of the week. After losing 49 states in the 1984 presidential election and then a last-minute Minnesota Senate race in 2002, what man became the first and so far only person to lose a statewide election in every U.S. state? We're going to go to a quick break, and we'll be right back.
We need your help to ensure one vote for one legal voter. Join Fight Voter Fraud. Request training, get the potential double-registered, double voter data for your town, and donate to support the fight. Visit fightvoterfraud.org, because election integrity starts with you.
Hi, and welcome back to Sinkowitz. I'm Linda Sinkowitz, again, the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. Now, before we left for break, we had our trivia question. And our trivia question again for the week is, after losing 49 states in the 1984 presidential election, and then a last minute Minnesota Senate race in 2002, what man became the first and so far only person to lose a statewide election in every U.S. state? The answer? Walter Mondale. Wow. That's quite a feat, to say the least. Well, now we're going to go on to national news. And this is from Post Crescent, and this is from November 12th, 2025. Republican governor candidate Josh Schumann proposes overhaul of state elections. Now, this Washington County executive, Josh Schumann, is proposing significant changes to the state's election agency, handing oversight to elected officials by the voters and moving statewide elections from spring to fall. Now, he's making his case to voters in the Republican primary for governor. Now, Schumann is also proposing how ballots are collected and counted by eliminating ballot drop boxes and barring municipalities from using one center to count the absentee ballots for all the voting locations. I hope he prevails, especially getting rid of those drop boxes and having absentee ballots just counted in one location is basically a setup for disaster. Look at Arizona. Now we're going to go on to vote notes. And this is from WXYZ ABC7. And this was from November 11th, 2025. Hamtramck city clerk placed on leave among election dispute allegations. Now, this one is absolutely crazy. The controversy is around 37 absentee ballots that were found in the clerk's office after the election. There's also lawsuits going back and forth and claims of non-residency between the candidates. There's lots of mudslinging going on. And these people are Yemen American and Bengali American. And I'm not sure what Farja is, but it's really, really an interesting story. So with vote notes, as always, it's a longer story. We're going to need you to go to our website, fightvoterfraud.org. You'll be able to click on it through the link from the program as well and check out that story. It's you can't make this stuff up on what's going back and forth in their state. So now I guess we're on to final thoughts. Again, I always have no idea what I'm going to talk about in our final thoughts. So this week, I think we'd like to touch on what I mention all the time is that everyone needs to pay attention and get involved in every election, whether it's the local election or your statewide election, or if it's a federal election. You cannot sit back and say, my vote's not going to count, because every vote needs to count, every legal vote. Again, we push for one vote for one legal voter. Now, this past November 2025 election, we saw a lot of things happening across the country and a lot of issues with a number of different things. I fielded a number of phone calls from election officials and registrars with different issues that were going on. Now, I think one of the tools that people need to have, and if you are actually going to be a proactive citizen here in America, is to know if you see something that doesn't look right within your local community, within your local county or your city or town, or however you vote within your state, you need to know who you can report it to or whom you need to report it to. Every state has a way for you to report issues. Don't think about it. Don't say, well, let me talk to 20 or 30 people and see what they think. If you've seen something that is a little wonky, I guess, in an election, report it. Report it to the election officials, again, that are appropriate for your city, state, town, etc. Because there's a lot of things, a lot of little things that go on. I mean, if you go into a polling station and you kind of know some of the people that are there and they're all one party, that's a problem. You're supposed to have both parties to make sure things are fair. If you're ever told to just, the machines aren't working, just put your ballot in this box over here to the right. And, Republicans, you put yours in here, and Democrats, you put yours in there. That should be a red flag, an absolute red flag. Another thing you might want to pay attention to is the tables themselves and where the people are sitting. Again, depending upon, your state, county, or whatever. If they have tablecloths on those tables, I would question what's underneath. You really don't want to think that nefarious things can happen, but there's nothing that I'm bringing up that hasn't happened that was not good, that we've seen on video, we've seen on tape. And there's so many things I know from 2020 that we saw. It's not just 2020. It's 2022, 2024, and 2025. There are still many issues that are happening. And you within your local community, your town, you can actually do something. Pay attention to what's going on. Ask questions. Like I said, I had a number of calls with issues. Unfortunately, every single one of them were after the election. One of the things you want to make sure you do is to put your complaint in writing, in an email, not just a phone call, but document what is going on. And you absolutely need to do it before the election is certified, because it's nearly impossible to change anything from election once it's been certified, even when we know that things are not right. I can't even imagine everything through every single county on all the stuff that is going on. I mean, I just know the stuff that I see and that I've heard of and I'm told about, and it's mind-boggling. Very simple things. We talked about earlier, those machines, they were burning up last year. And then they have a vote. No, we don't want to replace them. It's too much money. So let's burn a couple more. Every time we do not use a machine that is working properly, it dilutes the vote, no matter how you look at it. We really need to just have hand-counted ballots. Open cameras, transparent with everything that's going on. We need that, because those little things could make a huge difference. Like I said, all we want is one vote for one legal voter. But each and every single one of you can do something. And I'll tell you, one of my big pet peeves is if you don't vote, I don't believe you have a right to say anything. Because the big part of what we are able to do as American citizens is to cast our vote. If you don't like something, or if you like something, you cast your vote. Don't sit back and say, well, it was only a local election. Well, those local elections affect every single one of you in your town, your neighbors, everything. So pay attention. Get out to vote. If you see something that doesn't make sense, report it. Check your voter rolls. You can do that. You're allowed to. If you see someone on the voter rolls that should not be there, file a complaint. Make the challenge and say they shouldn't be there, because trust me, a lot of those election officials are not doing their jobs. Some of them are doing the best they can, but there's a lot that aren't. There's very specific laws that need to be followed, and a lot of them are not following the law. You can help. That's my challenge to every single one of you, is to vote in the next election, check for anything wonky going on, and encourage your friends who are legal U.S. citizens to go out and vote. So again, I want to thank everyone for watching us on Sinkwitz on OBBM Network TV. Basically, all we want to do is educate everyone on election integrity. We'd also like you to like and share our program, get our information out there. If you have questions, if you have concerns, contact us. You can contact us through the info@fightvoterfraud.org. You can just, send the emails. We do respond to every single email. And we want to thank everyone for all your comments that you give to us. So again, I want to thank everyone for watching us on Sinkwitz, on OBBM Network TV, Rumble, YouTube, and a lot of other social media platforms. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.